Berlin, 1945. As the Red Army approached the city center, the German capital descended into chaos and destruction. Deep underground, beneath the Reich Chancellery, Adolf Hitler was living his final days in the Führer bunker, surrounded by a few close associates. Exhausted and isolated, he issued absurd orders to his collapsing armies as Berlin breathed its last. How did Hitler spend his final moments? Who was with him in the bunker? Did he actually commit suicide? On the afternoon of April 1945, Hitler emerged into the courtyard of his Reich Chancellery above the bunker to award medals to teenage boys from the Hitler Youth who had participated in the defense of the city against Soviet tanks, a poignant scene that demonstrated his final reliance on children to defend the Reich. As evening fell, Hitler celebrated his 56th birthday amidst a somber atmosphere. Despite the deteriorating situation, some high-ranking Nazis flocked to Hitler's bunker to offer their congratulations and try to persuade him to leave Berlin for his stronghold in the Bavarian mountains to the south. It was too late. Hitler stubbornly rejected all those pleas, declaring that he would never leave the capital. The ceremony was bleak and artificial. Hitler sat silently, lost in thought, and the gathering did not last long. Hitler excused himself and withdrew to his room early. When Hitler left the bunker, his loyal mistress, Eva Braun, tried to break the atmosphere of despair. She led the women and some officers to her old salon above the bunker to organize a final farewell party. There, she played music and danced, trying to forget the bitter reality to the sound of shells exploding above the shelter's roof.
The others joined her in drinking and forced laughter, but the sounds of artillery dominated the scene, making that last night resemble a hysterical dance on the edge of the abyss. On April 2nd, during a crucial military meeting in the bunker, Hitler broke down for the first time in front of his commanders. His plan to launch a counterattack led by General Wecksteiner had failed. He shouted angrily at his generals, saying, "They have all betrayed me and failed." After the meeting, Hitler summoned his doctor, Dr. Werner Hasse, to ask him about a sure way to commit suicide. The doctor advised him to combine swallowing cyanide with a gunshot to the head. The decisive blow to Hitler came on April 8th, when he received shocking news about one of his closest and most trusted men. The influence of Heinrich Himmler, the commander of the Reichswehr, was growing. International media reported that Himmler was attempting to bypass Hitler and negotiate a separate surrender with the Western powers. This constituted, in Hitler's eyes, an unforgivable act of high treason, a stab in the back from his closest confidant. At the height of this nervous breakdown, Hitler unleashed his fury on Hermann Fegelein, his brother-in-law and Himmler's representative at Reichswehr. Fegelein had been caught an hour earlier, attempting to flee Berlin in civilian clothes with forged documents, coinciding with the leaks about Himmler's treachery. His escape attempt was seen as an extension of his leader's betrayal.
Hitler immediately ordered his execution by firing squad in the garden of the Reichswehr. The sentence was carried out swiftly and without trial. After the execution, silence and panic descended upon the Reichswehr. Hitler realized he could no longer trust any of his senior commanders and began to believe that everyone was conspiring against him, even the poison capsules he had stored for suicide, the effectiveness of which he now doubted. He suspected that Himmler might have tampered with him. To dispel his doubts, Hitler summoned his doctor, asked him to test one of the cyanide capsules on his pet dog, Lonnie, to confirm its effectiveness. The doctor led the dog to a corridor outside Hitler's room and placed the cyanide capsule on Lonnie's dog. In seconds, Lonnie collapsed. The doctor returned to Hitler and confirmed the capsule's effectiveness. Hitler then left the room and muttered bitterly, "Stohmuller turned out to be effective." In the early hours of April 9th, approximately 12:30 a.m., Adolf Hitler married Eva Braun brief ceremony held inside the bunker in the map room with two witnesses, propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels and his private secretary, Martin Bormann. The bride appeared wearing a simple blue dress and signed the marriage register as Adolf Hitler. After the ceremony, Hitler, his wife, and several remaining members of his entourage gathered in the bunker's dining room to exchange congratulations in an atmosphere heavy with death and wishes. Those present were wishing each other's swift deaths. That afternoon, Hitler received the shocking news of the assassination of his ally, Benito Mussolini, the leader of Italy. The fascist regime, at the hands of Italian revolutionaries the day before, and the public mutilation of his body only strengthened his conviction that suicide was the only way to end his life without humiliation or falling into enemy hands. As dawn broke on Monday, April 1945, in the bunker in Berlin, Soviet forces had advanced to the city center, now only a few hundred meters from the shelter. Fighting raged street by street inside the bunker. Adolf Hitler appeared pale and exhausted, his movements heavy with depression and a mental breakdown. Hitler met for the last time with his remaining officers and aides. About 20 people attended the meeting in a narrow hallway inside the bunker, including Joseph Goebbels, Martin Bormann, and several generals, in addition to two secretaries, the Dr. Werner Hasse, and some nurses and other female staff. Hitler silently approached each person, shook their hand, and whispered farewell words that were not clearly audible. Then, in a low voice, he delivered a brief speech to those present, announcing his intention to commit suicide. To avoid capture, he released them from their personal oath of loyalty to him, urging them to try to escape. He then went aside to his personal physician, Dr. Haas, to discuss the details of the suicide. He insisted that Eva Braun die at the same moment he fired the shot. The doctor relayed these instructions to her verbatim. Afterwards, he returned to his private quarters to spend his final hours with his wife and two of his secretaries. He ate a light lunch around 2 p.m. After lunch, Hitler thanked his team and distributed cyanide capsules to his secretaries in case of capture. Around 2:30 p.m., Hitler and Eva left the dining room and headed towards the private office inside the bunker. Trudlung, Hitler's youngest secretary, recounts that when he took her hand, his gaze seemed distant and unfocused on her. He uttered incomprehensible words of farewell. Eva Braun approached her and hugged her, saying, "Please try to get out of here and give my regards to Badia." Then she followed her husband inside, and the door closed behind them around 3 p.m. At half past the hour, a gunshot rang out. The concrete corridor shook for a moment, then silence returned. Heinz Lenga, Hitler's butler, accompanied by Bormann, advanced towards the study and opened the door. He found Hitler sitting on the sofa, leaning to his right side, his pistol near his hand. A bullet had pierced his head. Beside him lay Eva Braun, dead, with no visible wounds, her features indicating poisoning. Then he announced in a low voice, "The Führer is dead." The final instructions were carried out quickly. Lenga and Geltz carried Hitler's body wrapped in a blanket, while others carried Eva's body. They took them up to the Reich Chancellery garden, poured fuel on the two bodies, and set them on fire. Several of those present, including Goebbels and Bormann, stood at the entrance to the bunker and gave a final salute before quickly returning inside due to the bombing. By evening, Hitler had ended his life, leaving behind the ashes of a war that had claimed millions of victims. The following day, the death of Hitler was officially announced on German radio, along with the appointment of Admiral Karl Donitz as his successor. 2 days later, the Berlin government surrendered to the Red Army. On May 8, 1945, Germany announced its unconditional surrender, marking the end of the war in Europe. What transpired inside the bunker became a symbol of the end of the Third Reich and the collapse of its regime.